Thank you so much. Namaste and welcome everyone to the 5th session of English Support Mission Summer Webinar Series. We have Professor Sumita Roy as our guest today. May I request Panchanan Duria sir to give the welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Subramsujit. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Today, I welcome you all to ESM Webinar Series 2023, Webinar 5th. And today, we are really glad to have with us Professor Sumita Roy, Madam, as the research person. We are very much thankful to her for accepting our invitation to conduct a session on today's topic, English for social interaction. This is my topic. This is the topic which is very close to me. In fact, I have written a book on this topic. It's going to be published very soon without a note, but without a note from Sumita, Madam. I'll send that after I complete writing the book. I'll send it back to Sumita Raman for her comment. So, dear participant, today's we have also with us as guest of honor Mr. Pragyaranjan Pandasa. He's a great poet, writer who writes both in English and Odia. He's a very committed teacher, a wonderful teacher. He has contributed a lot to his village high school. Thank you, sir. So let me tell you something about today's webinar. You know, most of the students, you participant, you watch YouTube content, so many other resources you have access to so many resources. But speaking English in social context is different. You need to know some social rules and etiquettes. Okay, some expression, which expression fits into which social context. So all these things go into making you an effective user of language. So English for social interaction includes so many aspects which you need to know, and today's webinar is going to focus all these aspects. So thank you so much. I'm pretty sure that today's webinar is going to be very engaging, useful, and informative, because last year we had a session by Madam, and the number of the participants was constant, 100 to 100. This is a great achievement for us. This is the magic of Professor Sumita Madam's session. This is the magic. So over to you, Subramsu. I request you to introduce today's guest and speaker.
Thank you so much, sir. The guest for today, as you said, is Pragyaranjan sir. He is a teacher by profession and a poet by passion who is interested in language and literature, and his presence has been found in many international book anthologies, and he's also a member to the Poetry Planet for budding poets, and forums like that. We welcome him. And the resource person for today is Professor Sumita Roy. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining with us this year. Ma'am is retired as a head Department of English and director, English Language Training Center of Osmania University, Hyderabad. She has more than 40 years of teaching experience in university level and 10 years in private colleges. And with that, she has her international experience, and she has visited more than 15 countries on academic and other assignments. She has donated many of her academic engagements of YouTube video lectures of IIT Kanpur and Impact Foundation, which has a viewership of about more than 10 million. And with that, she has more than 47 books and 52 articles in national and international journals. I am sure that our participants will be highly happy by the session today. We welcome you.
Thank you for having me, and my greetings and namaskar to all of you, all the resource persons, the great personalities, and the young students also. It is a very interesting topic which we have today. English for social interaction. Before beginning to tell you about anything about it, I would like to tell you about an incident. On 11th September 1893, a young man from India went to Chicago to represent the Sanatana Dharma at the Parliament of Religions. There were many speakers there. He was a little shy because he had to speak in English. English was not his mother tongue. But finally, when he stood up to speak, the first 5 English words which he uttered, only 5 words, sisters and brothers of America. 7,000 English-speaking people whose mother tongue was English stood up and started clapping for him. English for social interaction. You know, he did not know any of these people. These people did not know him. He did not know English as a mother tongue. He knew English because he had learned it in India, being ruled by the British at that time. But many speakers who spoke before him might not have used this connectivity. You know, we call it as a social skill or a people skill or the interpersonal skill. That is what Vivekananda used. Because in India, it's very common to say, Behno or Bhaiyo. It is a very common thing. But in the English-speaking country, this might not have been common. He was using, as we heard, you know, in the introduction, that using catchphrases, using the right kind of words and idioms, using the right phrasal verbs. This is very important in social interaction. So learners of English should concentrate on this. Our mother tongue we learn automatically by listening. In English, we don't have a chance to listen that much of English. So when we are ready for this kind of an interaction, we should choose using our own creativity, using our own capabilities, so that we choose the right words in the right context. This is what Vivekananda did. I was telling you about Swami Vivekananda's appearance at the Chicago Parliament. Why he got this ability is because he was trying to build a bridge between the speaker and the listener. I'm sure all of you know that communication is like a circle. You know, it begins with the speaker who encodes a message, then it reaches the listener who decodes the message and then replies. So that is social interaction. You know, you speak, the other person listens, and the other person responds. Therefore, we need to think about all kinds of relationships as social interaction. Before beginning about the English part of it, let me spend a little time on social interaction. I'll finish in about an hour's time, and I would like a lot of interaction from all the participants, because listening is only one of the skills. Real interaction is an exchange. So all the participants who are here, please get ready to speak. Let us have a nice conversation. Let us have a nice debate in order to bring out English as a part of social interaction. You know, one of the contexts of interaction is teacher-student. I'm sure all teachers on this forum know it. We have a great poet. I'm sure the poet and the audience, the reader of the poetry or the listener of the poetry, wonderful interaction. So, what exactly is social interaction and what do we require for it? Before starting on the English part, let me tell you about this. I'm sharing my ideas. All of you are welcome to share yours once I have finished. Social interaction can be of a personal, informal variety, or it can be a professional, formal variety. These are the areas you have to remember: formal and informal, personal and professional. These are the kinds of social interactions we usually have in our lives. If you look at a person who's talking to his or her family, you will know what kind of a language etiquette that person has. Might not be English, it might be Oriya, or it might be, you know, any other language which is their language of comfort. But very often we break this communication etiquette when we are in an informal context. But for learners of English, this is wrong, because we should first get the correctness, we should first get the accepted etiquette, and then only we should change over to an informal, non-etiquette structure. So for all learners of English, since we are learning English as a second, third, fourth language, let us be very careful about our informal or casual or personal interactions. When it comes to formal interaction or professional interaction, usually everybody is very clear. Somebody's mic is on, please switch it off. When we are talking in, formal contexts, we find that we don't really make any mistakes because we are prepared for that formal context. Whatever English you learn in your school and college prepares you for that formal interaction. But if you go to a social gathering where everybody is chatting, they are not really, talking about very important things, then you find that your formal interaction is unsuitable here. Somebody comes up to you and says, "Where is your residence?" In a face-to-face informal communication, the word residence is not necessary. You say, "Where is your house? Where do you stay? Where do you live?" Not "Where is your residence?" Whereas when we are writing formally, we always say, instead of house or place of living, we say residence. So you see, a simple change makes your communication good or bad. Therefore, learning the language according to context, contextual ability of language is what is most important in social interaction. Now, if I was speaking to all teachers of English, I would tell you a lot about the theory of social interaction, but I won't do that, because general learners of English, I'm assuming that majority of people here are the general learners of English. They don't need any of these rules or terminology. They don't need all the structures. If you want to know, of course, you have Google. Huge amount of information is available on Google already. The best way to learn social interaction is to look at the ways in which you have to interact every day. Suppose you have to introduce yourself. Then what do? Suppose you have to carry out a conversation on telephone or on an answering machine. Then what do? Suppose you have to talk to somebody who is not agreeing with you. So you have to do negotiation. You have to give your ideas, accept the person's ideas. The other person starts arguing or fighting with you. Then your interaction should be conflict resolution. You have to manage the conflict without it escalating. Polite, decent English without creating conflict, without using an abusive language. There are other times when you have to motivate. Last evening, I was giving a lecture to one engineering college in Pune. About 200 participants were there. And I was telling them how important it is to be able to motivate themselves and to motivate others. Social interaction is powerfully motivating or demotivating. If somebody tells you a negative point about yourself in a positive way that is beneficial, we call it as tact, T-A-C-T. So in social interaction, we require tact. That is one of the points of etiquette. Unless we use it, suppose we are very rude, we are very crude, we use language which should not be used. We call it as politically incorrect language. There is no politics here. We are talking about the politics of language. So politically incorrect language we cannot use. For instance, if you look at a person with a black skin, you can no longer call that person a Negro. Negro is not a politically correct word anymore. You can't use the color black. You have to use their, hyphenated identity by saying African or Afro-American and so on. Therefore, we have to be very careful in the kind of etiquette we are using, in the kind of interaction we are using. The way in which you will talk to your colleagues in your workplace or in your college, and the way you talk to your boss or your teachers or your principal is completely different. All these are social interactions which require a series of structures which you must learn. This we learn with practice. The more you practice, the better it becomes. Of course, we don't get a lot of chance to practice, so we usually learn from books, etc. I will share with Dr. Panchanan Durya a part of one of my books, Business English, which has a lot of social interaction. I will try to show it now, one or two of the conversations, so that you get an idea. But many are there. I keep sharing it, with thousands of people. So all of you can also have that. That will give you an idea of what exactly is expected of us in social interaction. Suppose somebody meets you at the bus stop and asks you, could you tell me what is the time? Now, many of you might reply, 10:45. That is not a complete, correct English social interaction. You should say it is 10:45 or 10:50 now. When you do that, if you say 10:45, you are being rude. Etiquette again. If you say it is 10:45 or it's 10:45, IT apostrophe S, then you are following the requirement of formal etiquette, because this is a stranger to you. It is not a person who knows. Somebody asks you, what is your name? Now, very often we make a mistake in this. We say, what is your good name? In English, to say what is your good name is an insult. We should never do that, because good name means reputation. We are not asking name here. If you say, what is your name? Please tell me your name. Could I know your name? These are polite ways of asking. But in India, we say, Aapka Shubh Naam kya hai? Shubh Naam, translation, good name. Good name, bad meaning in English, good meaning in Hindi. Therefore, we cannot do that one-to-one translation when we know our language well and when we go on to the other context. So each social interaction has its own series of requirements. And these requirements we need to keep in mind. This would be a part of your remedial English learning. Because when we learn remedial English, all of us know some English. Because from childhood, we are learning some English. Many times, because of our teachers, we learn some wrong English also. Or because of our social surroundings. Everybody is using something, we start using. For instance, we say postpone. Now we put off by one day, we say postpone. Now Panchanan had asked me to speak on second. I said, no, I will speak on first, because second I'm not free. So immediately an Indian speaker will say prepone. This word has not come into the dictionary yet. The word is advance. So please advance my class to 1st of June instead of 2nd of June, not prepone. Maybe in another few years, the prepone word will come into the English dictionary. Then we can happily use prepone, because Indian speakers of English are a large number. So many Indianisms are being accepted by the English speakers all over the world. So till then, let us maintain the requirement of the social etiquette. Most of the interactions which we have are usually formal interactions, but sometimes we have to learn for informal interactions also. So the structures which I'll show you are all formal interactions. They're not really informal ones. I have nothing to share with you which is informal interaction. So I will just talk about it. Now, suppose somebody asks you, when you reach home, somebody says, will you have some tea? You say, You make a sound. You don't use any word. You just make a sound. That is wrong. That is not accepted even in informal family construction. You can say yes. If you don't feel like saying thank you, no problem. If somebody offers you something, you say yes, thank you. That is, English is a polite language. We don't have that much politeness in our mother tongue as we have in English, because we have please, thank you, sorry, so many words. Those are difficult to translate into our language. So that is a cultural difference. We don't have to worry about that cultural difference. But when we are learning English, we should keep in mind that, yes, thank you, if you feel like saying. You say, oh, why are you saying thank you? I'm a member of your family. Please don't say thank you. Then you say at least yes. Or you can say, that would be nice. Do you want some tea? That would be nice. What are you doing? You're appreciating the offer of tea. Or you say, only saying no is very rude again. So you say, I don't think so. Do you want some tea? I don't think so. That means I don't want any tea. I don't think here does not indicate that you are undecided. This is a phrase in informal conversation which says no, polite no. These kind of structures, unless we practice, unless we learn, we do not improve in social interactions. A very important part of social interaction is persuasion. I told you about negotiation. I told you about conflict. I'll try to show you some of the conversations on this. And now I'm talking to you about persuasion. Persuasion. You want somebody to buy something which you're selling. You see the advertisements, how persuasive they are. That is also social interaction. I was taking a workshop for senior management of the electricity board. And they were telling me how many of them are liaison officers. They have to liaison between the government and their company. They have to liaison because electricity is a government department, with the private vendors who are, transmitting the electricity, with the people, customers like us who are paying for the electricity. So you can imagine persuasion. Today electricity is 1 rupee per unit. Tomorrow, electricity might be 2 rupees per unit. So who is the one who has to be convinced? The person who pays. So you say that we are unable to manage with 1 rupee, so we have to ask for 2 rupees. This kind of an interaction requires a lot of talking when you might be able to convince somebody. So many things are happening around us. Today we have social media. A lot of persuasion is going on in social media. You might have seen very important issues which you and I might not have an opinion about. If you look at the YouTube videos, they will form an opinion. They will tell you, this person is speaking like this, he should not have spoken. This person is speaking like this, that is the correct way of speaking. This person is behaving in this way, should not have done. Your state has got a lot of good publicity about your political situation. So that is social interaction. When two people are discussing politics, They say, oh, in Odisha, we have a wonderful political structure. Somebody who's living in Odisha might say, oh, no, 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 it is not like that at all. There are problems. So we have a variety of talk where you have to persuade the person by saying, no, Odisha is the best, nothing can compare with that. This kind of an interaction is what we call as persuasion. Now, I also told you about motivation. Motivation is very important too. When a person is reluctant to do something, especially teachers when they are mentoring in their colleges. I'm sure some of you might be teaching. And when you have the mentoring relationship, one student, one teacher, not a group of students as learners in a classroom, there, very, very important is motivation. Somebody comes and asks, should I take up a job or should I do higher studies? Now, what should you do? You have to first find out what is convenient for that person and motivate that person to choose. Are your parents able to pay for your education, or do you have a scholarship? Then do higher education. Oh, I'm not interested. Motivation. What are the benefits of higher education? You have to explain. The student will keep asking you questions. Or you say, take a job. My family is very poor. With great difficulty, they have educated me till graduation. Take a job. You have got a job, then take it. You have to persuade, oh no, I want to study, I don't want to work. You have to motivate. This kind of a motivation often comes under the category of persuasion, but persuasion can be done by two equal partners. Motivation usually has a social distinction. There is a subordination, what we learn in subordinate clauses, in grammar. That kind of a relationship is there in motivation. Motivation always comes from a higher source. And when we are talking about motivation, please remember that there is a great intrapersonal interaction also. I told you about interpersonal interaction between two people or two groups of people. But intrapersonal, very often we are talking to ourselves, taking two sides. It is like playing chess alone. You have a chess board, you move the white coin, then you move the black coin. You're playing chess on your own. Like that, very often we speak to ourselves. If you practice speaking to yourself in English, our English teachers told us, not only speaking to yourself, but when you start dreaming in English, dream is a powerful social interaction because many characters come in our dreams. Check up your language, the language of your dreams. If you start dreaming in English, that means you're improving. That means your English is becoming better because your thought process is going in English. Whenever I go to Kolkata, very often I'm told to give a lecture in Bengali because that's my mother tongue. But I say, I cannot give one full lecture. I can talk to you informally. Now see social interaction. If you want, I can talk to you in my mother tongue. But if you put me on a stage and you have an audience, I can only speak in English because that is what I have practiced. All of us have our limitations. I can understand your language very clearly because it's very close to my language. But I cannot speak your language at all. I can speak, read and write Telugu because that is where I grew up. But, that is not a language which I learned first. First, I learned my mother tongue. English I learned after learning Urdu, Hindi, Telugu, then English. So you can imagine how learning of English is a process by itself. When we want to learn English for all these contexts, context of advising, another context for seeking help, another context for refusing, or context for appreciating. There are many, many, many possible interactions. You have to choose. You sit down today after the session and think of the last 10 days, who all you interacted with and what kind of interaction it was. Was it an argument? Was it a discussion? Was it a fight? You know, we are most fluent when we are fighting with each other. All words which you never knew you had come to your mind, because there the flow of adrenaline is very much and our minds are very sharp. But we don't want a fight in English. We want in English an argument which is very decent, but you are expressing your displeasure, but you are not being rude about it. This is what is most important. Now, when we talk about the kinds of English which we require, very important, I'm now going to talk to you about the structures of language. In social interaction, what do we require? Two things are important. Since usually social interaction is either face-to-face talking, that is spoken English, or these days it is WhatsApp chatting. You know, that is also there, or telephone conversation. These are there. So what is required? That your thinking and your articulation should be simultaneous. You cannot think 1 hour before and then articulate 1 hour later. You can't do what you do in your examination. Always people say that written English, Indian students know much better. They don't know spoken English. Many students used to come to me and say, we have got 90 marks in English, see our memo, but we can't speak one sentence of English. You got 90 marks, written English, spoken 0, because they never took a spoken exam. Therefore, since social interaction is spoken, we have to keep this order, that thinking and speaking should be absolutely at the same moment. It should not be a gap. If there's a gap between thinking and speaking, that is not a proper interaction. You cannot say that you are interacting well when a person asks you something and after 2 minutes you reply. It has to be instantaneous. Somebody was asking about an interview. What happens in an interview room? All young students here will go for an interview sooner or later. What happens? They ask you a question. You don't know the answer. Then how do you interact? You say, I'm sorry, I could not get your question. Will you please repeat? Could I hear the question once more? I beg your pardon. I would like you to repeat the question once more. Social interaction. You need time to think the answer. So you are doing this. That is also possible. Or you haven't understood what they asked. You can always ask. You can always try it out. This is an absolutely formal context where you are using formal language. So thinking and speaking together. That is the first point for you to remember when you are thinking about speaking in a social context. The next important point is fluency level 1. What you require as you require English to flow easily. That is the first level. But very often, people who are speaking English fluently are not speaking it correctly. So the second level is accuracy. Accuracy, correctness of the language. This is where the problem comes. You know, level 1 fluency. Okay, you practice, and you get fluency. Today, you have wonderful technological help. You know, most of us have a smartphone. So when you want to learn English, when you want to learn social interaction, what you do, you put on your camera in your smartphone. You speak out as though you are two different people. You record it and you see, what are the mistakes I made? You know, self-learning, self-improvement is the best way of improvement. Speakers like me can come and speak to you for hours and hours. No improvement comes unless you practice. Therefore, practice is most important. So first level, if you are uncomfortable with English, then you try to gain fluency. That is, all your thoughts should find words in English. The second is that whatever you're speaking, you must be able to analyze. That is the second level. You are able to analyze, did I make a mistake? Not somebody else telling me you made a mistake. I must find out my own mistakes. How do we do this? Two things are important here: listening and reading. The more you listen to English, the more you read English, your mind gets filled with the language, the correct language. And these items of language come out when you are speaking. So you have to spend a long time in listening and reading in order to get your fluency. Fluency comes with practice, but you need to have something to practice. And that something comes from your knowledge of the language. The more you improve. Many students who are studying in English medium tell me that they don't, they have no exposure to English. I often tell them that all the books you are reading are written in English. This is the problem mainly with engineering students I have seen. They read fat books, all written in English. They say, we don't know English. Then how did you learn? Your electronics, your computers, your mechanical engineering, your civil engineering, all in English. But you never paid attention to the English. You paid attention only to the content of the books, not to the language of the books. So you have to change your orientation now. When you listen, all of you are listening now, I'm speaking. I'm sure all of you are listening only to what ideas I'm giving you. Nobody is listening to my, structures of the language, my pronunciation of the language, my vocabulary, the words which I'm using. Nobody is listening. Because first time we cannot listen. We only listen to meaning. Therefore, repeated listening. I've been telling this on and on and on for the past 30, 40 years. Same thing, 2 minutes you listen, but listen 10 times so that it becomes a part of your memory. We have a supercomputer in our brain. It has endless GB of space. So in some GBs, ODI is kept. In some GB, please keep English. And unless you keep some English, you will never get fluency. But real social interaction, all the contexts I told you about, formal, informal context, requires accuracy. So you must be able to string correct sentences, complete sentences. Very often in speaking, we speak half sentences. In formal interaction, this is not allowed. You cannot use it. Suppose in an interview, they tell you that we are giving you a problem. Please work out on a sheet of paper. Do you have a sheet of paper? Many people answer by saying yes or no. That is not correct. You should say, yes, please, or yes, thank you, or no, sorry. That means you want a paper. May I borrow a paper? As I told you, English is a polite language. We have to use these polite structures. Are you, comfortable? Again, you say, yes, thank you. Or you say, no, I would like to move the chair out of the light. Therefore, what you are saying should be a complete sentence, a single word. If they ask you, tell us your name, you say Sumita Roy. That is not enough. You say, my name is, or I am. This kind of a sentence in a formal context is required. When you give that single word reply, that is considered to be a transgression of etiquette. That is considered to be a breaking of communication etiquette. Today, the first thing we teach is communication etiquette and communication ethics. Before teaching English grammar, we have to teach them. Because very often, people do not know that different languages have different etiquette. If you look at the words also, we say in English, a warm welcome, because it's a cold country. So a welcome is warm. Now here, in a warm country, if you give a warm welcome, then that is not very comfortable. So many of our languages have a good word is cool, the translation of English cool, and warm or hot is considered to be not a good adjective to use with various contexts. This is called collocation. So collocation in English and collocation in our mother tongue is different. When you are learning the language by translating from this, collocation gets broken. So in social interaction, we make social faux pas. Faux pas is mistake, It's not an English word, of course, but FAUSPAUX. That is, I'm sorry, I misspelled it, I think. Anyway, this is what is happening very often, that we are translating directly from our mother tongue and the problem comes. So when you aim for accuracy, reading a grammar book or doing grammar exercises is not going to help you. You require actual contexts, actual conversations, or actual interactions. Many of us might watch, there are many animation films where there are English subtitles, Chota Bheem and all those things, very cute animations. Stories of Panchatantra, there are, with English subtitles. So you look at them, you look at the interaction because people are talking to each other. Then you have a wonderful way of learning interaction. If you're interested in watching English movies, people are constantly speaking to each other and you can get a subtitle in English. There you can see how language is used. By constant exposure to this, you will get the structures of English. Unless we know the structures of a language, English structures are different from our own structures. Therefore, one-to-one translation does not help. If I construct a sentence in English, in Hindi, I will put the word hai at the end. In English, if I say, I cannot put is at the end of the sentence. Hai is. Whereas is comes right in the beginning after the subject. So we are changing the entire structure of the sentence. Therefore, learning English by translation, bilingual method is only good for the lowest level of learning. When you are at the basic level of learning English, bilingual method is excellent. You can use your mother tongue to learn English. But when you want to reach a higher level of English, social interaction in a higher context, there you have to give up your mother tongue as a separate language and English as a separate language. Don't forget your mother tongue because you're learning English. Don't forget English because you know your mother tongue. That should not be done. It is like playing music, Every song, the musicians change the tune of their musical instrument. They don't play the same tune for all songs. Every time they have to change the knob and then they start playing again. So English, we have to change our vocal cords, our, voice mechanism, our grammar of English, separate. Mother tongue, separate. That is what gives us accuracy. So when we are talking in terms of fluency and accuracy, learning of the language is important. As soon as I say learning of the language is important, everybody says, which book should I learn it from? the books are good up to a point. Beyond a point, the books don't help. Interaction is a practical work. There, no book can help you. It is like the story, I'm sure all of you know, where the very scholarly person had read 100 books on swimming. But when the boat was drowning, he did not know how to swim because he had only read books on swimming. He did not learn to swim. So if we read books on English, we don't learn because we never practice. I have seen students who write, if you give them correction of sentences, they write the correct sentence, full 10 marks. Same sentence, they make mistake when they are speaking. So the knowledge of what is there in the written paper is not the knowledge which they are using when they are interacting socially. Therefore, you have to pay a lot of attention. In vocabulary, as I told you, phrasal verbs are very important. When we are talking, especially interaction, we have to know all the modal auxiliary verbs, how to combine the helping verb with the main verb, which are the correct tenses to be used where. And, if you say, I had eaten, that means you are hungry. Suppose somebody asks, do you want dinner? So you say, I had eaten. What you have to say is, I have eaten. That means my stomach is full of food now. I don't want any more food. If you say, I had eaten, that person will give you some dinner. Therefore, knowing which tense to use where, which not to use where, these are all very significant points for your learning of English. So you analyze the contexts and then you go on to learn it. So the best way to learn, you will find this on Google. If you Google search, you will find a whole lot of PDFs and things like that on social interaction. English for social interaction, endless volumes are there. We have one book coming also. I'm sure Panchanan will share with all of you his book because you will learn a lot from it. I have told you, I will show you something. Let me see if I'm able to share the window. Then I will try to share it. It's only a Word document, so I will try to share. Let me see if it works well. Now, here is a person who has to introduce himself. He is a salesperson. So he's gone to a doctor and the doctor thinks he's a patient. So first he says, may I come in, doctor? Now, this is a polite way of saying. Very often we say, can I come in? Now, can I come in is not correct because can implies capability, may implies permission. So if you say, can I come in? Yes, if you have legs, you can come in. If you can walk, you can come in. I have no control whether you can come in or not. Whereas permission is, may I come in? Look at the answer which the doctor gives. Yes, please come and sit down. Tell me, what is wrong with you? This is what the doctor will ask a patient. Now, the doctor could have said, what is wrong? Question mark. But that is not polite conversation. That is not a proper etiquette for social interaction. So the doctor says, tell me, what is wrong with you? That is so much better to use there. Then the doctor says, doctor, the person who's come in says, let me introduce myself. I'm not a patient, very clear. Now, the other person has understood. It was not spoken. You can easily see. I hope all of you are able to see the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, madam, clearly.
Okay, very good. So, then, you can see. Said, I'm not a patient. I'm a medical representative by profession. The doctor says, oh, surprise. Nothing is here, only politeness. I was expecting a patient. You are not one. My name is Srihari and I work for Central Pharmaceuticals Company. See how clear the introduction is? First, he says who he is. I'm not a patient. He could have started by saying, I'm so-and-so. He did not say. He is replying to, tell me what is your problem. Say, I'm not a patient. So you see how important context is for social interaction. You have to be very clear how you are going to interact. Then, of course, he says, the doctor says, hello, Srihari, glad to meet you. Polite again, decent again. The doctor is not going to say hello, patient, to the patient. The doctor is going to ask, tell me what is wrong with you. But Srihari is not a patient. So the doctor puts him on the same platform. Hello, Srihari, and I'm glad to meet you. The doctor can never say, tell the patient, I'm glad to meet you, because the patient will be very upset. The patient goes to the doctor only when he or she is in trouble. So if the doctor says, I'm glad to meet you, that means the patient will think, this is a very greedy doctor. He wants fees. That is why he's saying, glad to meet you. He's glad that I'm ill. That meaning comes. So can you imagine the kind of thought process? Two things I have to tell you here. One is creative thinking and critical thinking. These we teach in soft skills very often. Someday, maybe I'll come back to you and, I will talk to you about critical thinking and all. Here you have to analyze. What is it that is being said? What should I say? How should I react? How should I interact? All this is happening in the brain. The words are coming immediately. You have to be quick on the uptake. This is what is required. Then, of course, he says, thank you, doctor. If you have some time to spare, now I'm interrupting your job as a doctor, patients. So if you have some time, I'm asking you, I would like to tell you about some of our products. Now, I will tell you, and I would like to tell you, are two different ways of communicating. That is what I was saying. Tenses and phrasal verbs are very important. I will tell you has an emphasis which does not give choice to the doctor. I would like to tell you gives the doctor a choice to refuse. Sorry, I don't want to hear, doctor can say. But when you say, I will tell you, then the doctor has to listen. The doctor gets irritated that how can you insist that you will? Such a small change makes for a good or a bad social interaction. That is why I was so happy to see the topic English for social interaction. It's a wonderful idea that you gave me, because it gives me a chance to explain to you. I just shared these passages and everybody reads them and says, okay, that's fine. But to talk about them, there are about 30, 40 pages of these small conversations. I will share this document as soon as the session is over, so that all of you can also have the document. Analyze each word. Look at each word. Critically evaluate each structure. Then see where you can use them in your interaction, where you can use them. This is, proper use of English. Well, hesitation. The word well is hesitation. Okay, I can't give you permission immediately. Let me see. Again, hesitation. Let me see. Are there any more patients in the waiting room? Now see, the doctor is hesitant. The doctor is saying that I cannot listen to you if there are patients. but they are saying it so politely. The doctor could have said, no, please go. I have to look at patients. I have to see patients now. The doctor did not do that. He says, are there any patients? No, I think there aren't. The room was empty when I came in. I think there aren't is not a doubtful statement. It is only a polite statement. This we forget. You know, whenever we use, I think in my mother tongue, I don't know if it Odia also it is there, dekchi. You know, they say dekchi. Dekchi means nothing is going to happen. I'm not going to do it, or I'm not interested. That kind of a phrase is used. It has become so common that everybody is constantly saying this. Now, when we are talking about politeness, so you say here, you know, the room, I think there was nobody because the room was empty. Then that's all right. Now the doctor gives full permission. Then that's all right. It's almost closing time. So I'm sure no one else will come. It's almost closing time. Telling Srihari that don't take too much time. Also telling him that no patient will come so you can speak. So you can see how positives and refusals are put, but very politely, very decently. Thank you, doctor. So please tell me all that you want to. So he says, thank you, doctor. So you can see how by, you know, very, very significant, small, you know, it's just a few lines. It's not much, but there is so much to learn here. How to introduce yourself, how to take an introduction. The other person already knows you are a doctor, so doctor does not introduce. Only Srihari is the new person. Srihari, the doctor doesn't know Srihari. There might be a situation where both don't know each other. Then you have to certainly introduce, both the people have to introduce themselves. Let us look at one or two. I don't know how much time I should give for all of you to speak. Please tell me. Then I will show you one or two others also. The organizers may tell me how much time I can take.
Panchanan sir, are you here? Please reply.
Panchanan sir, please tell me. Another 10 minutes or another half an hour?
Ma'am, I don't think he's here in the meeting, so you may please continue, no problem. We don't have any time.
If, many people have questions, etc. Then I will stop quickly. You know, that is much more interesting than my talking only. My talking is very boring, but you're asking questions, you're sharing your experiences. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Sure,
so it is 11:32 now. I'll try to finish by 11:45. Okay. Then if I find a lot of silence, then I will continue. Thank you, whoever is saying it's not boring, but I'm getting bored.
We are listening.
Okay, you're listening. Wonderful. Please listen, but practicing is more important than listening. Now, here is somebody who comes in and says, excuse me, could I meet the HR manager, please? The word please is used, but it is a question. Could I meet? Again, you know, may I come in? Could I meet? These are all polite requests. Please sit down. I'm Mishra, the senior HR manager of Digitechies. So he says, okay, you've come to the right person. But before introducing himself, he says, please sit down. Thank you, sir. May I introduce myself? Exactly what we had earlier, you know, introducing. May I introduce myself? I'm Ramya, an MBA from ABC Management School. And I was wondering if there is any opening for me in your organization. See how clearly, not only introduction, but the purpose of the visit also. Clearly, who am I? What is my capability, my qualification, and why have I come to meet you? All in the space of one conversation. So we have, I'm Ramya. She's introducing herself. MBA, she's telling us about her qualification. Where did you study? Good college. Then you mention, you feel proud that, yes, I've studied in, a good university or a good college. And then, is there a job for me? So I was wondering, this is a wonderful way, a wonderful phrase which all of us need to use. I was wondering, that is a polite way of asking that, may I request you to tell me whether you can employ me, whether you can give me a job. So instead of saying it with may I, you say, I was wondering, is there any opening for me? Opening here implies job. Better to say opening than a job. Did anyone ask you to come and see me? Now it is like an interview. So the question is asked. How did you know you had to come to me? Did anyone ask you to come? Yes, one of our professors, Professor Saxena, suggested that I get in touch with you. So says, yes, I got a reference. What is your specialization, Ramya? Now you see, it's like an interview. First you have name, then you have requirement, then you have qualification also. Now you want to know specialization. So he says, it is HR, sir. So this is HR manager, because all hiring is done by HR manager. She's also an HR graduate. I have excellent marks all through my education. And even in MBA, I was in the first 10% of my class. All those of you who are going to appear for an interview can easily learn. They say, tell us about yourself. That is the first question an interviewer asks the candidate. Tell us about yourself, or tell me about yourself. Many of the candidates, they tell their name and they keep quiet. They have given you 5 minutes or 2 minutes to introduce yourself. Who are you? What is your qualification? What are your capabilities? How good are you at your job? All these details they are looking for. Some people start saying, my father's name is so-and-so, my mother's name is so-and-so, I have so many siblings. Not necessary. Unless your father is also in HR, unless your mother has helped you to do MBA, unless these people will help you in your career. So these are unnecessary information. How to say it? Very clearly that I'm excellent. I got, the top 10%. If there are 100 students, my rank is within the first 10. Clearly says. Then, why did you not opt for any company that came to your campus for recruitment? Now, very important question. If you're such a good student, you should have got a job already. Why didn't you get a job? If you're saying you're so good, then why didn't you get a job? Now, Ramya gives a long answer. You can see she tells about her personal thing. Here, the personal item is allowed. Earlier, she never said anything personal. She only said something professional. Now she says, I'm sorry to be personal, but during the final year of my study, my father was diagnosed with cancer, and I had to spend most of my time in the hospital with him. With great difficulty, I found time to take the exams, but I missed all the recruitment programs. See, clear. My father was ill. I couldn't go for recruitment. Okay, Ramya. Now the HR manager is convinced. Leave your resume with me. Let me see what I can do for you. No promise. Let me see what I can do for you is I'm willing to help, but I'm not making a promise to help. No promises are being made. Thank you very much, sir. It was It will be a great help if you do. So Ramya needs the job. You know, many of us are very poor. We need the job. So she says, it will be very good if you can help. Now, these are contexts for introduction. These passages have many contexts, including, you know, invitation, how to invite somebody, how to accept an invitation, how to refuse an invitation. You know, somebody invites, you say, no, no, I'm not coming. Bad social interaction. You have to politely say, I would love to come, but unfortunately, I'm not able to come. So all these contexts I'm sharing with you, so you will be able to see. Then I told you about conflict. You know, two people start fighting. Then maybe a third person can come and resolve. Or the two people themselves can resolve the conflict. This we see on the road, busy traffic. Very often we see fights happening on the road. So when you have this, you can easily find out that here is a social interaction where you can use. Of course, you can't use English on the road because nobody will understand. But if such a situation comes in your life, in your college, you can always use English for interaction. So I would recommend that all of you practice these contexts. One, try to learn as many common expressions, common phrases. You know, very often in conversation, you have the word, oh dear. Oh dear, you know, and person in India will think somebody is calling, saying, I love you. That is not the meaning. Oh dear is an exclamation which says, is that really so? Suppose you have come late for the interview. We did, you know, interview just now. Then he says, I missed the bus, therefore I could not come. Then the person who's managing the organizing of the interview says, oh dear, you have missed your chance. So this young girl thinks, oh my God, this man is calling me dear. How terrible. I'm very upset. No, they are not calling you oh dear. They are saying that I'm sorry, you have lost your chance. Oh dear is such a phrase. So these common phrasal verbs, these common phrases of social interaction, you can learn. This you can learn by going to the websites which are there plenty. Let me stop sharing this and let me try to see if I can share this one. No, I don't think I can share this. That is one of the websites, you know, but it is English for social interaction. They have given exercises also. Could I speak to, and then, you know, how may I help you? All those exercises you can easily do for yourself. That is one thing which you have to do. The other is take as many opportunities to practice whatever you are learning. Today, I showed you 2 pieces of conversation. So now, if you have a friend, you take a role and you give your friend another role. You be the doctor or you be the bank manager, let that person be the customer. Or you be the doctor, let that person be the patient. And then you have a conversation using these phrases which we encountered here. Then you be the employer and the other friend is the person seeking the job. So you use the phrases which have been used. You use a lot of contexts like that. Once you start doing these things, you will find that you are able to get a lot of ideas from the phrases which are already in your mind. So every day, if you practice, you read all this multiple times, you can practice using the paper. Then whenever you have a free class in college or whenever you have a free time, you sit down, you think of a context. You know, 2 strangers meeting in a bus. So they are going on a long distance. they start talking to each other. Indians are very friendly. So we keep talking to each other. You're traveling in a train, or somebody has come to see, Puri Jagannath. So you're telling them about how beautiful the temple, Jagannath Puri temple is, or they're going to Konarak. So you say, oh, you're going to Puri Jagannath, please go to Konarak also. And you have a conversation. Like that, think of situations, take one friend and keep practicing using the phrases which you will find plenty online and on the file which I'm sharing. When you do this, when you practice, you will find that first your fluency improves and then your accuracy improves. Of course, higher than fluency and accuracy is your communication, which we call sophistication. Sophistication implies that you can say the same thing to different people in using a different level of English. When you are speaking to small children about, how nice Odisha is, you use simple language. You are speaking to a foreigner who has come to your state, and the foreigner is an English mother tongue person. You use sophisticated language, high language. You use it to an ordinary person who doesn't know very good English. Then you use some basic English. You speak to professors in the university who have come from other universities to Utkal University. You use academic English. So you are able to use English of all types, from the simplest to the children's English to the highest to the native speakers English. This is beneficial to you because in future we don't know who you will be speaking to in English. Many of you will go out of your city, out of your state, out of your country. Therefore, you will have different contexts of speaking. Now is the time for you to learn. Now is the time for you to practice. So if you practice 1 or 2 conversations per day, if you're in the first year graduation, for 3 years you practice. Imagine, 365 conversations into 3. So more than 1,000 conversations you've practiced. Then you reach the level of sophistication. You don't have any worries anymore. If somebody knows better English than you, form a pair with them. A person who knows more than you and a person who knows less than you are both very beneficial to you. So form teams in such a way that all don't have same level of English. Somebody knows more than you, you learn from them. Somebody makes more mistakes than you, you learn by avoiding those mistakes. So both are useful. And it is for you very important that you form this kind of diverse teams, multi-layered teams with different abilities so that your English improves. Fluency and accuracy and sophistication. That is our aim in social interaction. So when we learn English, learn grammar, learn vocabulary, learn pronunciation. These are the 3 important points of English that you have to concentrate on. And once you do this, you will be successful in all interactions. People will consider it a great honor to have a conversation with you. And that will be, that is exactly what you would like to do. So thank you very much for listening to me. And now it is open for you. You can comment, you can share your ideas, and you can ask questions also.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for this wonderful and engaging session as it was last year. I personally enjoyed a lot and got some insight into English for social interaction. It will be very useful to me in writing my books. Now I request our guest of honor, Mr. Pragyaranjan Panda, to give his feedback on the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Really very much thankful to you, brother Dr. Panchanand Duria. We started by 10:30 and now it is 11:50. I was listening very keenly and I salute the depth of ocean Dr. Sumita Ray ji has, and speechless I am. She started with the great speech of Vivekananda at Chicago when he started from my brothers and sisters of America, and there was a big round of applause all around the world. Before Vivekananda went to Chicago and he delivered his maiden speech, people had hardly known about India and its culture and its language, the way of living, our spiritualism. And then the great madam, the resource person of today, she started talking about the fluency and the accuracy of English learning. In brief, I can say I am very much thankful, grateful, and I enjoyed a lot. I learned a lot from her. Earlier also, I had an opportunity to listen about her, but I have never been a part of this. So I humbly thank Mr. Panchanand Duria, Dr. Panchanand Duria, my brother, to have invited me. So to start with, I think we are running of time. So to start with, the topic of today's discussion is English for social interaction. That's a very good topic. So before taking this into our discussion, we have to know about the social structure. What is your society? And to which society we belong? If I am going to say, I would like to point on two things. Here we have two kinds of society. The society of the privileged and the society of the unprivileged. The 10% or the 20% people, the class of people that we belong to, we have everything. We have good education. We come from good economical background. We have access to good education. But the society, the major sections of the people here in India, they cannot afford to good education. And in India, English is our second language. India is such a vast country of so many languages, so many dialects. So after India got its independence, and when the English people started staying here in India, we have had a new system of education. And we were introduced to English learning. From there, the journey starts. Until now, we are in the 21st century. So many universities, so many temples of learning we are having now. Till then, this question lies. How many of us are able to get the access to work for social interaction in English? I belong to a place where very few people, they are having the access to learn English. And my brother Panchanan Duria, Dr. Panchanath Duria, doing his best to spread the knowledge of English to the poorer section of the society, to the unprivileged, to the downtrodden. The students, they cannot have access to education. They are houses with dilapidated structures. Although the government of Odisha, they are doing their best. Now 5T is introduced. The government is taking off total transformation of schools. But talking about the society that we belong, and most of us belong in India. Whether English, we have been able to give them the right kind of access to have a English conversation or English interaction for them. That's the question. Now there are many facilities. There are many scopes to develop one's fluency, develop one's accuracy. But the first and foremost thing is primary education. That is the fundamental thing. That is the foundation stone. One would be surprised to learn when the student enters class 8, the teachers has to, in some of the area I am saying, the teachers have to teach them alphabets. And how much time one gets to interact in English? Almost not a single minute. So English to English conversation has been a dream to so many. So how one gets the fluency enhanced? How one will have the, the interaction process strengthened? That's a big question. And your mission, my brother, English Support Mission, would be a great help to them. And I am really moved by the great speech, by the great advice of respected Madam Professor Dr. Sumita Rai. I humbly thank her from the core of my heart, and I would be loving to listen to her in future also. But if I go on speaking about the interaction of English, social interaction. So social interaction is different from the bookish learning. Bookish learning has a lot to do with grammar, but functional English that we are discussing about, that's called a social interaction. It has a little role to do in grammar. I'm 100%. I do 100% agree with agree to Madam, respected Madam, that grammar comes later on in the part of the life of a student. When he may not be sufficient some vocabulary within his mind to transfer it into words, whatever one feels. If he or she can express it properly, that is the best way, that is the best thing we would have achieved. Social interaction differs from place to place, time to time, and people to people. So it needs to the need of the hour is to give importance to see about the change in the educational pattern that we have been imparting since years. Take for example, I am in an institution, suppose, where there are hundreds of students and they come from a different mother tongue speaking area. And the mother tongue that we take it for granted today is not actually the mother tongue. We have some different dialects, we have some different language that we speak. And when we come to school, we are instructed that this is your mother tongue and we have accepted this. Take for Santali, I am talking about Odisha. Take for my place, Western Odisha. What we speak, that is not Odia actually. The difference between Bengali and Odia, it is the same or a little bit more difference with Western Odisha people and Odia. But our mother tongue is Odisha. Our mother tongue is Odia. We have been taught. Starting from I go to school or we enter to school, we are taught in Odia. So that's the problem. What is the mother tongue? What we listen from the mother, from the parents, up to we grow, till we go outside. That's our mother tongue. Then comes the second language, that is English. So now our discussion is not about mother tongue. Our discussion is about the social interactions of English. So when and where I have not been taught properly to interact in my so-called Odia, so-called mother tongue that I have been entrusted with, how can I go up to learning about a second language? That's of more importance. So now, within the limited space, it would not be fair to put light on such a vast topic. After I have listened hour-long, very eloquent and enlightening and interesting speech of respected madam, I think myself very proud to speak more about this. Any day, if I would be given a chance, I can give more light on this. Many thanks, my brother Panchanand Duria and my dear brother Dr. Satya Siddharth and all of the participants today. Thank you very much. Many, many thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your speech, a wonderful speech.
Thank you, brother.
Now I request Nilamani Sunani to coordinate the question and answer session. Over to you, Nilamani.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a brilliant session. It's very insightful and stimulating session.
Open your video.
Hello.
Open your video.
So due to some technical error, I'm on.
Okay, please continue.
It was a brilliant, engaging, and stimulating session indeed. Thank you so much, ma'am. I enjoyed a lot and learned a lot from the today's sessions. So there, let me two questions. Chat works. Let me get out for you. Dr. Satyasiddharth Padda sir wants to know what are the best practices to improve social communication skills, and he also wants to know how to improve one's emotional intelligence to improve one's social communication skills. Uh,
Okay, let me try to. I think the first one has already been answered. Before I finished, I gave you some points about how you can, what best practices you can adapt in order to change your social communication, in order to improve your social communication. The second question is very interesting, but it will take one whole session. It cannot be answered in a minute because all our communication is driven by emotions. We invest a lot of emotion in our communication, but where the communication becomes excessively emotional, there we are not communicating properly. The desired emotion, which is required for a particular communication, is all what we should invest in it. Anything less or more shows lack of emotional intelligence. Someday I will do a session on emotional intelligence for you when I find time. Then I'll tell you in great detail about the content of emotion. Now, the two conversations I shared with you, let us talk about the emotional content in that. You look at the emotions of the doctor. When the doctor sees this person, the doctor assumes that he's a patient. This assumption, assumption is an emotion, that I have an expectation in my mind, my attitude, and so on. The person who has come to meet the doctor is not a patient. Therefore, he needs to use an emotion so that he can draw the doctor's attention towards himself. If the doctor is looking at him indifferently or looking at him as a patient, his purpose is not fulfilled. He requires the doctor to give him a patient hearing about the products his company manufactures, about the medicines his company manufactures. Therefore, he has to have the doctor's emotional engagement in his response. But the doctor at present says, if there are patients, I can't listen to you. This creates an emotion of, discomfort or fear or negativity in Srihari, which he controls by saying that there are no patients. I think there are no patients. So you can see he's using emotional intelligence by not saying, oh, you are so busy, you can't listen to me, then I'm leaving, I'll come another day. That would be emotional imbalance. He is not like that. He is patient. He's giving a lot of attention to the doctor, and he's giving a choice. I remember while doing the conversation, I told you, I would like to tell you, give the doctor a choice. These are all pointers to emotional intelligence. In the second passage which you saw, the girl says, I'm sorry to introduce a personal note, because the personal is more emotional. Her father was ill. She could not attend classes. She could not attend interviews. So the emotional content is huge. This translates into the interviewer, into the HR manager. Initially, his questions are very curt. But later, when he says, leave your resume, let me see what I can do for you, you can see that he's got a connect with Ramya. As long as we know how to balance our emotions, as long as we do not get, the ability not to recognize or to respect or to regulate our emotions, we fail in social interaction. When we can identify our emotions, when we can keep them in check, when we can use the amount of emotion required in a particular context, then we are using emotional intelligence. Okay? That is a very simplistic and very brief answer, but I think I can't tell you anything more than this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any comments?
Sister, how to develop critical thinking?
Hey, my God, these are all big questions. Dr. Panchanan Duria, I think your next course should not be English, it should be soft skills.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
I'll tell you. Since you've asked, I'll tell you. You know, critical thinking implies that as soon as you hear something, you don't immediately react with it, either saying, I believe it or I disbelieve it. You think about it, you look at it from all points of view, you analyze it, you review it, you see how much of it can be accepted, you see what is correct, and you bring out your own, abilities for this. Usually while teaching critical thinking, I give an example, and that is Adi Shankaracharya. Adi Shankaracharya, as a young man, was asked to introduce himself. Then, he says, Natato Namata, and he ends by saying, Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. That is, I'm that consciousness which is always blissful, that is always auspicious and pure. Shivoham is auspiciousness, purity. Chidananda, Chit is consciousness. Ananda is bliss. So I'm not a human being. I'm not this body. I'm not anything. I'm that consciousness. So you know how critical thinking is used here? You are asked, who are you? And he does not say, I'm Adi Shankaracharya, or he does not say, my name is Shankar. Instead, he says, the beautiful hymn is there. You can hear it on YouTube, you will find. Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. So that is critical thinking. If a question is asked to you, as in social interaction, you have to give an answer which is an answer which is original, an answer which is innovative, an answer which is impressive. Then you have critical thinking. Most of us have very passive thinking. We always accept with what others tell us. We have a beautiful play of Shakespeare called The Taming of the Shrew. Some of you might have heard the story. So you point out to the sun and say, see, beautiful moon is shining. She says, yes, yes, beautiful moon is shining. Many of our students are like that. Whatever the teacher says, they say, oh, yes. They never use their analytical faculty. So critical thinking is that. Whenever you are interacting with somebody, you have to critically evaluate the context, the speaker, the message which is coded, and uncode according to your requirements, according to your temperament, according to your emotions, which we spoke about just now. So that would be critical thinking, not casually, doing, not the attitude that, take it easy. That is not critical thinking.
Thank you.
Next question.
Sir, I have questions.
Please speak.
Hello.
Speak.
How to get rid of the fear of making mistake while speaking?
How to get rid of the fear of speaking.
Making mistake.
Making mistakes. Remember, I'll give you a mathematical equation. You know why we are scared of making mistakes? Because others will laugh at us. So I tell my students, if 1% person laughs at you, you learn 1% English. So if you want to learn 100% English, let 100 people laugh at you. That means we should not be self-conscious. The more mistakes we make, the better we learn. Remember how you learned to walk. You fell down 100 times, then you started walking when you were a baby. Now today, if you fall, you feel embarrassed. You look here and there. Hey, anybody is seeing I have fallen down. But a small baby does not do that. Falls down, gets up and starts walking again. That is how we learn to walk. If you know how to ride a cycle, you will know how many times we fell down. All these places, our knees and elbows were always cut. But after falling 100 times, we learned how to cycle. So failures are the stepping stones to success. If you feel fear, excellent. Continue to feel fear. Make as many mistakes as you want. Continue to make mistakes. But remember that when you make a mistake, you should be aware that you are making a mistake. That is level 2. You must be able to correct the mistake. That is level 3. They come slowly. First, you make mistakes, you don't realize. Second, you make mistake, then you realize, oh, I made a mistake. Third, you make a mistake, you realize, and then you know how to correct it also. That is the level all of us should reach. But we make a mistake and then we realize that, there are many videos, as you heard, YouTube videos are there. When I look at some video, I find, oh, how many mistakes I made in the use of English. I'm an English teacher, but English is not my mother tongue. So I also make mistakes. Then I know, okay, I should have said like this and I should not have said this. Next time, I must correct myself. That is how we all learn. All of us are learners. Because I speak to you, don't think I know anything more than you. We are all learning. And the faster and better we learn, the better it is for us. Okay? So don't get
Excuse
disappointed.
me, ma'am.
Yes.
Excuse me, ma'am. How strongness will be created for speaking English? Confidence and strongness.
To get confidence, you must start believing that you can do something. Most of us feel as though we can't do. We only tell ourselves, oh, I don't know English. I'm not good enough. I can never learn. Others are better, so on. So this is a self-defeating prophecy. Instead, we should have auto-suggestion that I am going to learn. I am going to be the best speaker of English. I'll give you an example. When I was in school, maybe first or second class, they would make us read English in the class. One by one, students had to read out loudly. That is a wonderful way of learning English, reading loudly. So I was very scared because I knew I would make mistakes. So I knew tomorrow is my turn. Till now, up to here it has come. Tomorrow I will get the chance. So I would say, oh, my stomach is aching, my head is aching, not go to school. But it so happened that next day I went, actually my chance came next day. So I had to read. By struggling, by believing that you can do something, it comes true. I will end by quoting Vivekananda again. Vivekananda says, you are the maker of your own destiny. He says, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. So your goal is to become good in English. And only you can do it. Dr. Panchanandurya can arrange 100 lectures by people like me. But you will not improve 1% unless you want to improve. You practice. So every day, if you have free time, every day 5 hours of English. In 1 year, your English will be better than my English. If you spend 5 hours concentrated. What you should do in those 5 hours, you can listen to my YouTube videos. You will get all ideas of what to do with English. Never feel scared, Supriti. Always feel that I can achieve anything which I want.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
With confidence.
Any further question, Nilavani?
No, sir.
Question?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay.
Okay, we can end the session.
I request Mr. Sunil Kumar Mahanand, teacher of English and coordinator of English submission, to offer a formal vote of thanks. Over to you, Sunil Mahanand.
Ma'am, namaskar. Thank you so much, ma'am. Actually, it is a very great and impactful session and a really very interesting topic. And you have rightly told us, ma'am, so long as if we do not discuss and if we do not practice, then it is impossible to get the accuracy and fluency ourselves. Right, sir. Thank you, Prajaranjan sir, Panda sir. You're just also nice talking, sir. And thank you, Panchanan Duria sir. You have been organizing the beautiful session. Okay, inviting the beautiful resource person, a very excellent resource person, right? And I have been watching the videos, Sumita ma'am's videos from Impact since 2018-19, and it is really gave me the immense pleasure, as well as I have been my level best. As when I was the police constable at that time. But after watching, I also motivated, and I started preparing for a teaching job, as well as the UPSC. Also, I'm preparing still today. So it is really, ma'am, very boosting, heart-touching lecture you have been giving. From so very long period of time, and last year also I had attend your lecture. It was also very fantastic, and today also I'm very grateful to you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful session, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I was very happy to be with all of you. All my achievements are God's gift, nothing to do with me. It is only God's gift which has given me this ability. Thank you.
Looking forward to another session by you, ma'am.